Morning. It's June 18th, and it's Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We're going to do a little garden update. This is our butternut squash that we have planted right out here in our front. It's in our front planter box, and they're doing pretty good. I trellised them up around this little piece of wire that we have, and now we're starting to let them grow on the ground too to fill all this in. And next is our sweet potatoes here, and you can see they've reached the top of the trellis and they're starting to grow up the strings there to reach the eave of the house. So let me get you a better shot of that. I'm trying to do this video early because the church will have service this morning, and we want to get this done and before they start their Sunday service. And here's our lettuces that are going to flower, and they're putting out their little flowers. They closed up this morning, but they were opened up really nice and bright yesterday. And there's our mulch. Well, actually, that's compost pile of our leftover leaves, composted leaves we got. And here is our little butternut squash we put here. And it's not doing as well as the others, but the soil wasn't really made for this one. But it's got the first flower on it, so it's still doing pretty good. We can't complain because it's living. And here's our saw palmeras in the container. You can see they're starting to really take off. And the one in the middle seems to be a lot larger than the ones on the end, but I don't know, maybe it just got a little better dirt. And our Yukon Golds, they're starting to finish out. I've been pulling a lot of the yellow off the bottom of the plants to try to keep that out of the soil. I don't want any of the leaves that's got blight on them to fall down in the soil there, because we're getting ready to cut the tops off of these and then let them sit for 2 weeks in the ground, and then we will dig them up. And here's our onions. The back row's the Pattersons, and the front row's the Elsa Craigs, and they're still doing pretty good. And here's our little box that we had our lettuces in. We just cut the heads of lettuce. This is iceberg lettuce off, and they're coming back out. We'll probably just eat the lettuce leaves. And we got a few little tomatoes and a few little onions that were planted in other little planters and weren't getting enough sun, so we went ahead and stuck them in there. Here's our iceberg lettuce that we cut the head off of, and now it's coming back out. We'll eat those leaves too. Here's our Patterson onions in the box here. Let's get you a shot of some. They're doing really nice. This is usually where we plant our carrots at, but we chose to do some onions this year and put our carrots on the other side. And they're all looking nice. Everything's looking good. Here's our blueberries and our leftover strawberries. We're going to change varieties out, so we dug the old mother plants out, and we're starting to get some good blueberries on there. They didn't produce as well as last year, but that's okay. There's one blue one right there. I better get it today before the birds get it. They've been sitting here watching them. There's a nice little cluster. There's a nice little cluster. Here's our Yukon Gold potato container. We went ahead and cut the tops out of these because in 2 weeks we're going to go ahead and take these out too and get another round of potatoes planted. And here's our cabbages. It's looking like I'm going to have to either get some more screen here or just go ahead and take it off completely, because the leaves are starting to curl under because it's trying to grow outside of this box. And they're doing great. They're turning out to be monsters. Let me see if I can get you a shot of the... There's might not pick up because it's focusing on the mesh. There's one head, and here's the head that was damaged and we thought we lost, but it's coming back. It's coming back out, if you can see that down in there. I'll do another video here of me taking the thing off of this. I got my hands full with the camera here. So there's another cabbage. There's our Sweet Success cucumbers. We've already taken the one down. It put out about 6 or 8 cucumbers on each plant, and then it stopped producing. So this guy's coming out again probably next week, and I'm going to replace it with these guys. I started these guys from seed. This is called a double yielder. These were the cucumbers we planted last year. If you follow the channel, you'll know how good those guys did. They were beautiful plants, and they turned out to be heavy yielders, is exactly what they were. So we're going to replace those with them. And here's our blackberry bushes. They're coming out really nice. We lost about all the canes last year, so through the winter, so we're not going to get that many blackberries this year, but we still have quite a bunch in there already forming. So we're going to, usually we take the canes back to about 2 to 4 per plant, but this year we're going to let them grow, and I'm pushing them down towards the ground as when they get a little taller, so that this winter we can cover them up again. That's how we're doing these over here. We lost all the canes there. I left them trellised up, and the winter got them, so I've pushed the new canes down towards the ground so they can growing along the ground, and then this fall we'll push them down as low as we can, and then just cover them up with some leaves or some straw or some mulch. And if we can't get them down far enough to the ground without breaking them off, we'll just leave them low like that, and that'll help them out trying to get through the winter. We'll do the same thing with these guys. And our ginger, it's doing pretty good, growing in here in the shade down here below the blackberry plants. See, it's all doing really nice. We finally got a little bit of rain, so that's helped out quite a bit. And I've been watering them to try to help with these high temperatures we've been having. Here's our barbecue pit with our onions in it. Those are Elsa Craig's, and I'm not sure about that front one. It's got a couple of different kinds in there. And our buckets back there, they're still going strong. Those are the baby Dutch potatoes. This box was baby Dutch potatoes, and they had all fell over and started yellowing, so I went ahead and cut the top side of those. We're going to give them 2 weeks in the ground to harden off the potatoes for storage, and we'll take them about the 1st of July. Here's our barbecue grill that we turned into a beet planter box, and you can see the beets are starting to really do nice down in there now. So that's our little project. It turned out to be a pretty good thing there for beets. So we'll do carrots in it next time. And here's our other Sweet Success cucumber, and you can see the leaves, how we've got this stuff getting on there. I sprayed them, and they do great. They've got a beautiful looking cucumber and great flavor, but they just don't produce as many as the double yielder, so we're going back to that. And there's our little rabbit, our little buddy. I'll leave him alone. You can see him down there around the wheat straw. He's a little baby guy around my water barrels. We'll leave him alone. I was going to shoot up. There he goes. See him over there in front of the water barrel. So every time I see him, I kind of go the other way, and so he don't feel threatened, and he can have his share of the stuff too. Here's our beans, and they're starting to really do well, and run up these little trellis panels we put on here. We got a double row here, and they're looking great. And I'm actually going to have to do something about them hanging over the top, because they're going to start falling down behind here, and it's going to make it hard to pick them. Here's our Marconis. They are not doing well. They are not doing as well as they did on the last year's video, we had them 7 foot tall, but this tallest plant here is only like not even 3 feet tall. We have a lot of peppers on here. You can see that, but these things are just stunted and not growing like they did on the other side. Potatoes were planted in these boxes last year with sulfur added, and it lowered the pH to the point of they just do not like it. I think I was around 4.5 to 5, and my mistake was I planted these guys before I checked them, the pH. So if you're planting anything in a new spot, invest in a pH meter. They're only like $10 at your big box stores, and that'll help you with if you have any issues with your soil. You can correct it before you plant in it, or you can plant something that will tolerate a lower or higher pH. And here's our Yukon Golds that we took the tops out of because they were all dying back, and we're going to give them till the 1st of July and get them out of there, and we're going to plant another row of these Kentucky blue pole beans right there. And our tomatoes are starting to come out of their little thing, their issue with the soil pH being wrong. So we're getting some nice tomatoes. You can see that in there. And we're getting some growth finally. These things stayed short for the longest time, and all of a sudden they just took off growing. So here's our sweet potatoes are filling out too. They've got this nice little trellis cattle panel that I put up for them, and they're doing pretty good. And this is our red snappers, and you can see they're doing great. They finally started adjusting to the low pH, and they would have been a lot bigger plant, I believe, by now, had the pH been corrected before I planted these guys too. You can see we're getting a lot of tomatoes in there. So they were stunted back pretty hard from the low pH. My mistake. I didn't test this soil either. I just planted them here. And but it's all working out. You can see the nice clusters of tomatoes we got in there on these red snappers. A lot of blooms. And then here's our Halls tomatoes. And there again, we had some issues with the soil pH here too in this box, but they are really starting to grow now that we've hit June and getting into almost July. We're getting a lot of blooms on them. Even with the pH problems that I had here, they're still producing tomatoes. So I highly recommend both varieties of these tomatoes. They are a determinate variety. They'll get about 5 foot tall, and once they get done producing all these blooms and the tomatoes, then they stop. They're not an indeterminate that'll grow all year. So we'll get them all done, can what we can, and eat what we can. And I've got another batch of tomato plants over there started. So I'll plant them probably in front of the blackberries. So here's our little chili pepper plant that was in a container, and it had stalled out. So we took our lettuces out of this container and put our chili pepper in there, and it's really taken off now. There's some chili peppers down in there. Here's our container carrots that we put there. I put the screen on it so the squirrels won't dig in there with it being fresh seeded carrots. And then here's our container. And I don't know if it's picking it up. I put a screen on this to keep the squirrels out of it. This was our lettuce container that we've got carrots in, and they're starting to sprout. So we got this container of carrots, and here's our nicest butternut squash. We put it in this container, and I'm training it along this trellis, this piece of lattice. Just go in and out. I've got 3 vines on the front hanging down, and I've got 3 vines in the back hanging down. And we're weaving it in and out of the trellis here to help support it when it starts getting its fruit, or vegetables rather. And last thing here is our little cabbage in the bucket, and it's doing pretty good. We just fertilized yesterday with a little bit of fertilizer to try to help things along, and just wanted to do a little update on everything here in the garden. Let me see if I can get the shot of the little bunny rabbit down there. He's back out. So we'll end that with him. You can see him down there. He's getting his full. I left the, there's some dandelions, and there's some, what is the other thing? I can't think of the other weed that they eat. We've got a lot of clover. I left all that planted over for him because that's where he seems to hang out. So, if you like the content of the channel, give us a thumbs up. Like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.